A couple of weeks ago, I went along to the Festival of Cards, the UK's largest postcard fair, on the hunt for old postcards and photos from Hong Kong. Here's what it looked like. There were dealers from all over the UK, and there must be literally hundreds of thousands of postcards on these tables. Here's the first of my purchases, a photo of a ship aground near a railway line. Now the railway shows that we are along the shore somewhere between Sha Tin and Tai Po, and also that the photo was taken before the second railway track was added at the end of the 1970s. Now that leads us to Typhoon Wanda in 1962, which caused unusually high tides here in Tolo Harbour. Several large ships ran aground, including this one, the Vincon, shown here on the shore near Tai Po Cow. Now looking back at the photos I bought at the fair, one pattern I see is that I often buy photos that expand on themes I've looked at before. In this case, we've previously looked at beach ships in volume 2 of my books. This is photo 21 in the book and shows a ship aground near Kowloon City after a typhoon in 1936. Later in the book is this photo showing the excavation of Morrison Hill. You see the men are digging the soil here. It runs down the slope and then ends up in the side tipping carts at the bottom. I bought this new postcard which explains what the soil and rail cars were used for. It shows the reclamation of the bay at Wanchai in the 1920s. Over at the right we can see several trams following the same route they use today. This then is Hennessy Road, and this is the corner where they turn off in today's Johnston Road. The reclamation was carried out using those side tipping trucks that we saw earlier. You can see one string of them here and another over here. The rails they ran on were easy to move and would be laid along the water's edge. You can see them running along the water's edge here and here. Steam engines would bring the carts here, and then workers would tip the carts out and the soil would run down into the sea. Now eventually, of course, new land would build up in front of the rails, and then the rails would be picked up, moved out onto that new land, and the process repeated again and again and again until the whole bay was filled in. Switching to volume 3, this book focuses on scenes taken on and around Hong Kong's harbour. Scenes like this one, photo 6, showing Aberdeen Harbour, which was home to a very large fishing fleet. Here's the new photo. First of all, I thought, well, it's impressive to see the junks actually out on the sea instead of just moored in the harbour. But what also caught my eye is this down in the foreground. It's an example of lift net fishing down here at the shore. Now this doesn't need any sailing boats. Instead, the net could be lowered and raised from the land. It would be lowered into the water with some type of bait here in the centre, and then when the fish swam in to investigate, the net was raised to lift them out the water. I recognised it because lift nets have been mentioned recently on the Gwulo website. Regular contributor IDJ took this photo back in 1984, and it shows a lift net on the shore out near the power station at Castle Peak. Book 3 also has this view of dragon boat racing, and I couldn't resist buying another. Switching to Book 4, photo 13 shows Happy Valley in 1902. Here are the pavilions and the crowds along the edge of the racetrack. Then there's the racetrack here. We can see there's a race underway actually from the clouds of dust that the horses are kicking up. Next inside from there is the practice track, and then in the centre there are lots of different sports pitches marked out. Looks like a game of cricket underway here. Away in the distance at the back of the valley there's a cluster of much smaller buildings, and these are the old village houses that made up Wong Nai Chung village. Here is the new view I bought, taken from a slightly different viewpoint, so we can't see much of the pavilions, just the edge of the buildings here. Big changes at the back of the valley. Those old village houses have all been cleared away, and replaced with these new 5-storey buildings. And if we look over to the left, there's lots more construction underway here as well. Still some of the older buildings on the hillside. Most of the hillside still quite bare at this time, but one exception is this little building here. And this is the chapel in the Jewish cemetery. You can see the walls of the cemetery running along here. Today, of course, the cemetery is hidden by lots of tall buildings, and you wouldn't really notice that it's there, but originally it had quite a commanding view looking out over the valley here. Here's the other photo I bought with a Happy Valley theme. You can see the racecourse pavilions off away in the background. And instead we're on the grounds of the Hong Kong Football Club. The caption down here reads Rugby Football Match, Club versus Army and Navy. And I've seen photos with a similar style of caption before, which makes me think this photo probably taken for one of the local newspapers. Now, one thing I'm not sure is whether the club in the caption here refers to the Hong Kong Football Club or to the Hong Kong Club. So if you recognise the style of clothes they're wearing and perhaps which club that would be, then please let us know in the comments below. We leave Happy Valley for our next purchase. This one was taken over at the Royal Naval Dockyard, where a musical band is wearing quite a curious mix of clothes, certainly not regulation uniform. But it's smiles all around from the officers over here, so it doesn't look like anyone's going to be getting into any trouble. And we can see the officers are standing on HMS Kent, which was flagship of the 5th Cruiser Squadron on the China Station and based in Hong Kong in the 1920s and 1930s. I wonder if you noticed the foliage above the men. Got a couple of bushes apparently growing up over here. We've seen something similar in a photo of HMS Tamar in Book 3. Here we are, another bush growing out here, and it's been explained it was a custom of the Royal Navy to decorate their ships like this at Christmas time. And so the band in fancy dress must have been part of the Navy's Christmas festivities. My 5th book looks at photos of the different people who lived in Hong Kong. Pages 20 and 21 are part of a chapter about street hawkers and have these photos of street barbers. At the fair I found a photo showing a whole group of them. Business is rather quiet over here on the right, but got several customers being beautified over on the left. Can't quite work out what's happening for the customer in the background, but this man here is definitely having a shave with a cutthroat razor. At this time, barbers would also offer to clean out your ears and remove any earwax, which is what is happening here. Now back to Book 5 again. And photos of the women who took on sewing work. The common name for them in Hong Kong was so-so women, but the new postcard I bought uses a more formal title, Street Tailoress. You notice the lady has got one of her children in a cloth baby carrier, and they turn up in Book 5 again, with several different views of the old cloth baby carriers. And it also shows how early colour postcards often appear in multiple versions. So these two both based on the same original black and white photo, but each colour version has its own interpretation. If you look, you can see how different the foliage looks in each of the pictures. At the postcard fair, I found yet another version and couldn't resist buying that as well. Now this was the last of my purchases, so just 10 new finds this year. Sadly, as more old cards and photos are sold online through sites like eBay, there are fewer and fewer on offer at the postcard fairs. If you'd like to see more old Hong Kong photos and hear their stories, I'm giving a new talk in London on Saturday, 25th of April. It'd be great to see you there. And of course, there are lots more photos and stories in my books. I'll put links to information about both the talk and the books in the notes below. And finally, a little bonus, I also asked dealers if they had any photos from Pembrokeshire in Wales, where I'm living. And I found a few, including this view of Milford Haven, where I grew up, showing the docks in the 1960s, when Milford still had a trawler fleet. Next we have a view of His Majesty's Dockyard at Pembroke Dock, taken sometime before the dockyard closed in 1926. I don't usually go to Pembroke Dock very often, but it's where driving tests are held locally, so we were regular visitors there for several months recently while my wife was practicing for her driving test, and I'm happy to report past that. Back to the dockyard. These two signs show there must have been plenty of flammable and even explosive materials in the dockyard. First one reads, "Smokers, be careful that no fire remains in your pipes." And notice, no lucifer matches allowed in the yard. Lucifer matches were the old friction type of matches that could burst into flame if they got knocked. And finally, a view of the beach at Broadhaven. We're living in a new flat. There's a building gone up here since this picture was taken, and it's indeed where I'm recording this video. Well, that wraps up the report of my visit to the Festival of Cards. Thank you very much for watching.